The living light, when the ocean mirrors the stars, the silence still appears. Imagine standing on a remote starlight at the stroke of midnight. The world is hushed, save for the rhythmic pulse of the tide. Above, the Milky Way stretches across the black canopy like a spilled jar of silver ink. But as a wave presses against the sand, something impossible happens. The water itself erupts in a surf of electric neon blue. For a fleeting second, the ocean floor looks like a reflection of the galaxy pole. This is not a trick of the moonlight or a chemical spill. It is a massive, coordinated biological event. This is bioluminescence, often described as living light. Bioluminescence is the production of and emission of the light by living organisms. While we might be familiar with the gentle flicker of fireflies in a summer meadow, the true theater of light lies beneath the waves. In the vast, crossing darkness of the ocean, a world where the sun rays cannot reach, bioluminescence is the primary landscape of life. It is an invisible force of biochemistry that turns the midnight sea into a mirror of the stars, driven by an elegance of design that far surpasses any human technology. As we stand on the two hulls of this glowing tide, we must look at the visual spectre and peer into the microscopic engine room, the high efficiency chemical reaction that makes light without heat, the chemistry of cold light, luciferin and luciferase. To understand how a living creature can glow, we must enter the world of molecular biology. The glow of the ocean is the result of a process called chemiluminescence. In our daily lives, we are used to incandescent light created by heat, such as in a traditional light bulb. However, heat is a weight of energy and can be lethal to a delicate organism. Nature's solution is cold light. The reaction is powered by two primary actors, luciferin and luciferase. The name Lucifer comes from the Latin lux, is light, and fer is to bring. The light bringer, luciferin the fuel. This is pigment or substrate that actually produces the light. And luciferase, the engine. This is an enzyme that acts as a catalyst, speeding up the reaction without being consumed by it. When an organism triggers the reaction, luciferin is exposed to oxygen. The luciferase enzyme facilitates this union, causing the luciferin to enter an excited state. As the molecules return to their stable, lower energy state, they release that excess energy in the form of photon, a particle of light. In terms of efficiency, this process is staggering. While a standard lead bulb might convert 20% of its energy into light, bioluminescence converts nearly 98% of its energy into light. There is virtually no heat loss to the environment. This chemical efficiency is a masterpiece of evolution, but the choice of color, that haunting electric pool, is not a matter of style. It is a calculated response to the physics of the ocean itself. The physics of blue, while the sea glows crimson. If you were to observe bioluminescence in the deep ocean, you would notice a recurring theme. Almost all the light is blue and orange or green. To understand why, We might look at the way light interacts with water, see water acts as a filter, observing different wavelengths of light at different rates. Long wavelength colors like red and orange are observed almost immediately in the upper layers of the ocean. Blue light, however, has a short wavelength and high frequency, allowing it to penetrate deeper and travel further through the dense medium of water. For a marine organism, there's no point in glowing red if no one you can see it from more than a few feet away. By producing blue light. These organisms answer their signal can be seen across the vast, dark plains of the abyss. In some cases, this blue light serves as a searchlight. Certain predators have evolved to see only blue light, using their own bioluminescence to illuminate prey. However, the most famous display of this blue light occurs at the surface, driven by billions of tiny signal-sound agitators known as dinoflagellates. Having decoded the physical properties of the light, we can now investigate the behavior of these microscopic drifters and the invisible triggers that cause them to ignite the sunlight. The microscopic agitators, dinoflagellates in and shear strat. When you see a starry sea, you are usually looking at a plume of dinoflagellates. These plankton are the most common source of bioluminescence in surface water. Unlike deep sea fish, which might glow at will, dinoflagellates are mechanical sensors. They respond to shear strat, the physical movement of the water. When a wave crosses, a fish swims by, or a human hand disturbs the water, the cell membranes of dinoflagellates is stretched. This physical movement triggers an electrical impulse within the cell, which opens voltage-gated ion channels. This changes the pH level inside the cell scintillant, the light-producing organelles, activating the luciferase enzyme. The result is a flat Earth light lasting only a fraction of a second. This is the polar alarm theory in action. When a predator, such as a tiny crustacean, tries to eat dinoflagellates, the flag startles the attacker. More importantly, it acts as a beacon, illuminating the predator for larger fish to see. In the invisible game of survival, the tiny plankton use light to call for the police of the ocean. The defensive brilliance of the plankton is a marvel of the surface, but as we descend into the twilight zone, we find that light is used for an even more sophisticated purpose, the act of vanishing. The act of the invisible counter-illuminating. In the microscopic zone, also known as the twilight zone, and that is still a faint, ghostly blue light filtering down from the surface. For the predator swimming below, any fish upon them will appear as a dark silhouette against the light, and easy to get. To survive this, many species have evolved a thermodynamic and optical trick called counter-illumination. Creators like the hard-fish on the bobtail squid possess light-producing organs called photophores on their undersides. These photophores are more than just glowing spots; they are sophisticated lenses. The animal can adjust the intensity of its pale glow to perfectly match the intensity of the sunlight coming from a pole. By doing this, they effectively erase their own shadow. To a predator looking up, the fish is invisible. It has blended perfectly into the down-rolling light. This is the ultimate form of high-tech camouflage, achieved not with paint or skin, but with the precise management of photons and energy. It is a reminder that in the ocean, the invisible forces of light can be used to hide just as effectively as they are used to reveal. While some eel like to hide, others use it as a leader to a deception, leading us to the most famous and terrifying archetypes of the deep, lures and sniper pins the hunter glow. As we descend further into the pelagic zone or the midnight zone, the sunlight disappears entirely. Here the pressure is immense. The cold is bone-chilling. In this sport, bioluminescence is the only source of light, and it is used as a weapon. The anger face is the most iconic practitioner of this darkness. From its head rose a five-defined dorsal fin spin, at the ends of which sits a glowing puff called an azure. This puff is a habitat for bioluminescent bacteria. It's a beautiful example of symbiosis. The feed provides the bacteria with nutrients, and in exchange, the bacteria provide the light to a wandering, hungry creature in the dark. The aircar looks like a small industrial morsel. By the time the prey realizes the morsel is attached to a mouthful of needle-like teeth, it's too late. Even more complex is the dragonfish. Most deep sea organisms can only see blue light. The dragonfish, however, can produce and see red bioluminescence inside a red sniper beam from a photophore beneath its eye. Because its prey cannot see the red light, the dragonfish can illuminate its victim and put it in total secrecy. It is biological equivalent of infrared night vision goggles. The Milky Way is a global masterpiece. On rare occasions, sailors have reported sailing through oceans of milk, vast stretches of water that glow with a steady white light for as far as the eye see. For centuries, these Milky Ways were considered maritime legends. However, in recent years, satellite imagery has confirmed their existence. Unlike the flashing light of dinoflagellates, Milky Ways are caught by a steady glow from massive concentrations of bioluminescent bacteria. These events can cover over 15,000 square kilometers. The scale of this energy expenditure is difficult to comprehend. Trillions upon trillions of bacteria glow in unison, creating a luminous carpet that can be seen from orbiting satellites. It is a reminder that even the smallest invisible forces, the chemistry of a single bacterium, can scale up to alter the very appearance of our planet from space. Bioluminescence is more than a beautiful anomaly. It is a profound testament to the adaptability of life. It shows us that in the darkness, most high-pressure environment on Earth, life does not simply endure, it innovates. Through the elegant management of luciferins and luciferins, the ocean had developed a way to communicate, hunt, and hide using the very laws of physics that govern the stars. The mirror of the star is fleeting, hunting reminder that energy is nearly truly lost.
This third installment in your documentary series explores the sailing stones of Death Valley. We move from the chemical light of the ocean to the kinetic mystery of the desert, focusing on how rare climate conditions and the invisible forces of friction and phase changes move mountains, 1 inch at a time. The Silent Travelers, the mystery of the sailing stones. Introduction. The racetrack of the gods. In the heart of Death Valley, California, lies one of the most desolate and flat places on Earth, the Racetrack Playa. It is a dry lakebed, parched by a sun that rarely relents, where the ground is a mosaic of cracked, sun-baked mud. Here, a geological enigma has baffled scientists for over a century. Scattered across the surface are hundreds of dolomite and syenite rocks, some weighing as much as 300 kilograms, that have moved across the perfectly flat ground, leaving long, meandering trails behind them. For decades, no one ever saw them move. There were no footprints, no tire marks, and no evidence of human or animal intervention. The trails suggested a slow, deliberate journey, yet the wind in the valley, though fierce, is never strong enough to slide a quarter-ton boulder across a dry surface. To the casual observer, it seemed as if the very ground was alive, or that some unseen hand was guiding these stones across the dust. This is the story of the sailing stones, a phenomenon where the invisible forces of thermodynamics and fluid dynamics converge in a rare, fleeting moment of movement. To solve the mystery of these silent travelers, we must first understand the unique canvas upon which they move, the strange flat world of the playa. The canvas. Geography of the playa. Playa is a dry lakebed found in arid regions. The Racetrack Playa is unique because it is exceptionally flat. The northern end is only a few centimeters higher than the southern end over a distance of nearly 5 kilometers. This flatness is crucial. It means that any force applied to a rock does not have to fight against gravity or incline. It only has to overcome friction. The surface of the playa is composed of fine-grained clay and silt. When dry, this surface is as hard as concrete. However, during the rare winter rains, the clay becomes saturated, turning into a slick, slippery mud. In this state, the coefficient of friction, the value that represents how much two surfaces stick together, drops significantly. But even with slippery mud, the wind speeds required to move a 300 kilos rock would need to exceed 250 kilometers per hour, a velocity almost never recorded on the valley floor. If the wind alone cannot do the work, and the mud is not enough, we must look for a mechanical lever, an invisible structure that multiplies the force of nature. The breakthrough, the ice raft. Theory. For nearly a century, theories ranged from magnetic fields and alien intervention to dust devils and localized gravity anomalies. It wasn't until 2014 when a team of researchers led by Richard Norris caught the movement on camera for the first time that the invisible force was finally unmasked. The secret was not in the heat of the desert, but in the rare, freezing cold of a winter night. The phenomenon requires a precise Goldilocks sequence of events. The flooding. A shallow layer of water must cover the playa, just deep enough to submerge the base of the rocks, but not so deep that they are underwater. The freeze. At night, the temperature must drop low enough to freeze the water, but not so low that it freezes the lake solid. It must create window pane ice, sheets of ice as thin as 3 to 5 millimeters. The breakup. As the sun rises, the ice begins to melt and break into large floating panels. In this state, the ice acts as a raft. When a light breeze blows, it catches the massive surface area of the ice sheets. Even a gentle wind of 15 kilometers per hour can exert a massive amount of force on an ice sheet that is hundreds of meters wide. This force is transferred to the rocks embedded in the ice. The ice raft becomes a massive sail, turning a gentle breeze into a powerful kinetic engine. But the true magic lies in the physics of how that force is applied to the ground. The physics of motion, friction and momentum. In thermodynamics and classical mechanics, movement occurs when the applied force exceeds the static friction. On a dry day, the static friction of a heavy rock on the playa is immense, but in the sailing state, the physics change entirely. As the floating ice sheets push against the rocks, the thin layer of water beneath the ice acts as a lubricant. The pressure is distributed across the wide area of the ice, but the movement is focused on the rock. Because the ice is moving as one giant cohesive unit, it possesses a massive amount of momentum. The rocks move incredibly slowly, sometimes only a few inches per minute. It is a movement so gradual that it is invisible to the human eye, appearing as if the rocks are standing still. This is why the mystery lasted so long. Humans are not calibrated to see the invisible pace of geological time. The trails we see are carved into the soft mud beneath the ice. When the water evaporates and the mud bakes in the sun, the trail is set in stone, leaving a permanent record of a journey that happened in total silence. This interaction between solid, liquid, and gas, the ice, the water, and the wind, is a masterclass in environmental equilibrium, showing how nature uses multiple states of matter to achieve the impossible. The paradox of path. Why trails diverge. One of the most baffling aspects of the sailing stones was that rocks sitting side by side would often move in different directions. Some would travel in straight lines, while others would make sharp 90-degree turns or even loop back on themselves. The invisible force here is the movement of the ice sheets themselves. As the ice melts and shatters, it doesn't move as a single uniform sheet. It fragments into smaller rafts that rotate and collide. A rock embedded in one piece of ice might be pushed south, while a rock only a meter away might be caught in a different fragment that is swirling eastward. This reveals a profound truth about thermodynamics. Systems often move toward entropy, disorder. Even though the wind blows in one general direction, the local turbulence and the fracturing of the ice create a chaotic, beautiful dance. The divergent trails are the signatures of the wind's invisible eddies and the ice's internal stresses. Understanding the chaos of the desert wind and the fracturing ice helps us appreciate the complexity of natural systems, but it also reminds us that these phenomena are delicate and fleeting. The invisible force, climate, and rarity. The sailing stones are a reminder of how fragile these natural processes are. The conditions required for the stones to move might only occur once every decade. It requires the perfect alignment of rain, freezing temperatures, and specific wind patterns. As the Earth's climate changes, these invisible forces may shift. If the valley becomes too dry or too warm to form windowpane ice, the stones will fall silent forever, their trails slowly eroding into the dust. In the grand narrative of our planet, the sailing stones represent the power of the small. A 5mm sheet of ice and a 15 km/h breeze can move a 300 kilo boulder. It is a lesson in how cumulative energy, applied through the right medium, can reshape the physical world. It challenges our perception of strength, showing that the most dramatic changes don't always require a cataclysm. Sometimes they just need a bit of ice and a quiet morning. As we conclude our investigation into the heavy stones of the desert, we see that nature's artistry is often found in the balance between the immovable and the inevitable. Conclusion: the quiet majesty of equilibrium. The sailing stones of Death Valley are a testament to the fact that the world is never truly still. Even in the most stagnant, parched environments, the laws of physics are constantly looking for a way to create motion. They are the brushes of the desert, painting long, lonely lines across a dry lakebed using the paint of ice and wind. We have seen how the invisible force of thermodynamics can freeze the ocean in a binnacle, how it can ignite the sea in bioluminescence, and now how it can move the very earth beneath our feet. These phenomena remind us that we live in a world of constant, invisible exchange, a world where temperature, density, and light are always at work, even when we aren't watching. But while the desert stones move under the cold light of a winter sun, there are other lights that only appear when the sun is gone, lights that defy the traditional rules of the sky, turning the darkness of night into a spectral display of colour through the rare phenomena.
Hanging on, walking tall. Some days I got no use for it all. Working hard, making less. Some days are bad, bad at best. Foolish notions, foolish lies. I set to thinking I could make something of me, playing every game except the lottery, serving everybody else and told myself I'm free. Misery is a showy state of bad company. Foolish notions, foolish lies. Foolish notions, they cut me down to size. You came along and lifted me up. The going got tough, but the tough got some love. Foolish notions, foolish lies. Foolish notions that made me wanna cry. Foolish notions, foolish lies. Foolish notions. Well, I said goodbye. And when you go, I will fall back apart. Find pieces of me all over the yard. In this house of cards, she says, hey man, there were just too many days when our good intentions only got in the way. And I almost never know what I should say. Maybe nothing nowhere ever was that okay. In this house of cards, with only hearts. You cannot reap what you never did sow. You cannot learn what you never won't know. In this house of cards, with only hearts. In this house of cards, and these lonely hearts. And when you go, I will fall back apart. Find pieces of me all over the yard. In this house of cards, she says, hey man, there were just too many days. When our good intentions only got in the way. And I almost never know what I should say. Maybe nothing nowhere ever was that okay. In this house of cards, with only hearts. You cannot reap what you never did sow. You cannot learn what you never won't know. In this house of cards, with only hearts. In this house of cards, talking about what I need. Say what you will at the hardware store. Don't get you started talking about sports, baby. Why won't you talk to me? Can't get your tongue when we're talking about what I need. Think you're the silent type, but that ain't what I like. I need a man who knows how to speak, so talk to me. Yap on the phone with your daddy till dawn, fishing with your buddies, going on and on and on. Those fish hear more than me. Cat gets your tongue when we're talking about what I need. Think you're the silent type. That ain't what I like. I need a man who knows how to speak. Oh, you think you're the silent type, but that ain't what I like. I want a man to keep me company. 60 odd miles from a plan. Is it too late to learn to listen? Too late to be less a man? How many yesterdays are between us now? How many yesterdays are between us now? Carried it all, cobbling miles as we go, a line at a time, or a sad swan song, offering up purple prose. And I'd find you if I could, invite you to the final act. But I think it's understood nothing good can come of that. How many yesterdays are between us now? How many yesterdays are between us now? Yesterdays are between us now. Talk to me. Can't get your tongue when we're talking about what I need. Say what you will at the hardware store. Don't get you started talking about sports, baby. Talk to me. Can't get your tongue when we're talking about what I need. Think you're the silent type, but that ain't what I like. I need a man who knows how to speak. about what I need. Think you're the silent type. That ain't what I like. I need a man who knows how to speak. Oh, you think you're the silent type, but that ain't what I like. I want a man to keep me company and talk to me. Baby, won't you talk to me?
Oh yeah, 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 oh yeah. Hey there, what you drinking? 2 shots, let's pour it up. I know what you're thinking, but tomorrow won't come for us. This life that we're living, ain't never gonna give it up. Double shot for the gifted, and one more for us. There you go, drink it up. All this love in a cup. Yeah, we go slow, we go fast. Yeah, we can't get enough. We stay all day, all night, living in paradise. Remember, you don't get it twice. The time of your life. This is the time of your life. Remember, you don't get it twice. The time of your life.
Luxury of the modern world. Introductions. A world that never stops talking. We live in the loudest era in human history. From the moment we wake up, sound rush toward us. Alarm clocks, traffic, notifications, voices, music, news. Even when no one is speaking, our phone vibrates, screens flash, and our minds remain busy. Silence had become something unusual, even uncomfortable. Yes, for most of human history, silence was not rare, it was normal. It was present in nature, in long nights, in deserts, forests, monasteries, and workshops of artists and thinkers. Today, silence is disappearing, and with it, something essential inside the human mind may be fading as well. This video explores 3 questions. What does silence do to the brain? Why are modern humans afraid of silence? And why was silence once considered scary? Especially in spiritual practice and creativity. 1. What silence does to the brain? Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It was biological and psychological conditions with measurable effects on the brain. Neuroscience research shows that when external noise decreases, the brain shifts into a different mode of operation. The auditory cortex, the region responsible for processing sound, becomes less active. Meanwhile, deeper brain networks begin to engage. One of these is the default mode network, a system associated with memory, self-reflections, creativity, and emotional processing. This network becomes active when the mind is not occupied by external tasks. In silence, the brain begins to repair itself. Studies suggest that periods of silence can stimulates the growth of new brain cells in the hippocampus. The reasons involved in learning and memory. Silence lowers cortisol levels, the hormones associated with stress. Heart rate slows, breathing becomes deeper, the nervous system shifts from fight or flight into rest and repair. In other words, silence is not empty, it is fertile. 2. Silence as mental space. Modern life constantly demands attention. Notifications, emails, social media, and news compete for mental space. The brain rarely has a chance to rest. Silence creates space. In silence, thoughts that were previously drowsed are begin to surface. Ideas connect. Emotions clarify. This is why moments of insight often occur in quiet environments. During a walk, in the shower, late at night. Silence allows the mind to wander, and wandering is not laziness. It is a critical cognitive process linked to problem solving. Imaginations, no, imaginations, and long-term planning. With those silence, the mind becomes reactive instead of reflective. 3. Why humans fear silence? If silence is so beneficial, why do we avoid it? Because silence forces us to confront ourselves. In silence, there is no distractions, no noise to escape into. Thoughts become louder, memories resurface, doubts appear, unanswered questions demand attention. For many people, silence feels threatening. Modern culture reinforces this fear. We are taught that productivity means constant activity, that being busy equals being valuable. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness, boredom, or inefficiency. This is also a social fear. Silence can feel awkward. In conversations, pause makes people uncomfortable. Silence exposes vulnerabilities. It removes the protective layer of noise. As a result, many people fill every gap with music, podcasts, scrolling, background noise, not because they enjoy it, but because they fear what silence might reveal. 4. Silence and the ego. Silence weakens the ego. The ego thrives on stimulations, comparisons, validations, and constant feedback. Noise feeds it. Silence thrives. In silence, the stories we tell ourselves begin to dissolve. The roles we play lose clarity. We are left with raw awareness. This is why silence had always been associated with humility, surrender, and inner truth. To remain silent is to listen not only to the world but to the self. 5. Silence in spiritual traditions. Throughout history, silence has been central to spiritual practice. Monks, hermits, and mystics across culture embrace silence as a path to insight. In monasteries, silence was not punishment, it was discipline, a way to quiet the mind so deeper awareness could emerge. In meditation traditions, silence allows practitioners to observe thoughts without attachment. In prayers, silence creates space for listening rather than speaking. Spiritual silence was seen as a bridge between the humans and the transcendent. 6. Silence and creativity. Great creativity is born from silence. Writers, composers, painters, and philosophers often describe silence as their most important tool. not the silence of emptiness, but silence of concentrations. Before sympathy is written, there is silence. Before painting takes shape, there is silence. Before breakthrough its idea appears, there is silence. Silence allows ideas to incubate. It provides distance from noise, trends, and expectation. In silence, originalities emerge. Creativity requires listening, and listening requires silence. 7. The loss of silence in the modern world. Today, silence is increasing rare. Cities are louder, homes are filled with screens, even nature is invaded by artificial noise. Many people have not experienced true silence for years. This loss had consequences. Chronic noise exposure, increased stress, anxiety, and cognitive fatigue. Without silence, attention fragments, sleep quality decreases, emotional regulation weakens. We are overstimulated, less under-reflective. 8. Relearning silence. Silence must be relearned. It does not require isolation or monastic life. It begins with intention. Short moments of silence each day, without device, without input, can restore balance. Even a few minutes can reset the nervous system. Learning to sit with silence is learning to sit with oneself. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is often a sign of growth. Conclusions. Silence as a form of wealth. In a world addicted to noise, silence had become a luxury, but unlike material wealth, silence cannot be bought. It must be protected. Children's respect. Silence is not the absence of light. It is when light becomes audible again. To reclaim silence is to reclaim depth, clarity, and presence. And perhaps, in silence, we may finally hear what truly matters.
The echoes of the unspoken. A psychological exploration of silence. Silence is often perceived as a blank canvas, but for the human mind, it is more like a dense forest. It can be a sanctuary for reflection or a fortress for understand how to navigate it. We must first understand why we build these walls of quietude in the first place. 1. The dual nature of silence psychologically. Silence is not a monolithic state. Doom. It generally falls into two categories. Constructive silence. This is the fertile void. It's the silence of a monk in meditation or an artist in deep focus. It allows the noise of daily life to settle, giving room for intuition and creativity to surface. Protective silence. This is a more complex psychological mechanism. It occurs when a person chooses consciously or unconsciously not to communicate their internal state. While it can feel like a cage, it is often built as a shield to the architecture of silence. Why we go quiet? Why does a person retreat into themselves? It isn't usually out of a desire to be difficult. It's a response to internal or external stimuli, emotional flooding. When emotions become too intense, be it awe, confusion, or overwhelming joy, the cognitive brain can momentarily. Silence becomes a necessary buffer to process these feelings before they can be translated into words. The fear of misinterpretation. Language is an imperfect tool. Many choose silence because they value the truth of their feelings. So much that they fear words will dilute or distort them. Social safety and self-preservation. In social psychology, silence is often a waiting room. A person may remain silent to observe their environment, ensuring it is safe and supportive before they reveal their authentic self. Part 2. The Bridge Back. How we reconnect if silence is a fortress. Then the exit is not a door that is forced open, but a bridge that is built. Transitioning from a state of internal silence back into active communication requires a gentle, step-by-step approach. 1. Developing emotional literacy, the first step to breaking a silence that feels restrictive, is learning to name the quiet. Momo. Instead of feeling a vague heaviness, one can ask, is this silence born of peace, or am I hiding from a thought? By identifying the flavor of the silence, the power it holds over the individual begins to wane. 2. The micro-communication strategy. You don't have to jump from total silence to a deep oration. Breaking the silence can be achieved through non-verbal cues, a nod, a smile, or a shared look. Low-stakes sharing. Talking about external things, the weather, a book, or a piece of music acts as a warm-up for the vocal. Cards and the mind. 3. Creating psychological safety to emerge from silence. One needs to feel that their words will land on soft ground. This involves choosing the right companions, people who listen without the immediate urge to fix, judge, or interrupt. When the environment is safe, the words naturally find their way out. The synthesis. Silence as a tool, not a trap. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate silence, but to master it. A healthy psychological state is one where a person can move fluidly between the richness of their inner quiet and the vibrancy of social connection. When we view silence as a comma rather than a period, it ceases to be a barrier and becomes a necessary pause in the beautiful symphony of human interaction. True silence is the rest of the mind, and is to the spirit what sleep is to the body. Nourishment and refreshment. William Penlitz delved deeper into these two transformative dimensions by reframing silence not as a void but as a vessel. We can see how it acts as a powerful tool for both internal evolution and external connection. Part 3. The Inner Sanctuary. Silence as a catalyst for self-growth. A world that demands constant output and reaction. Silence is the only space where the self can truly be heard. For personal development, silence is not passive. It is an active state of refinement. 1. The mirror of introspection. When external noise fades, our internal dialogue becomes clearer. Silence acts as a psychological mirror, stripping away the roles we play for others, identifying authentic values. Without the influence of societal shoulds and peer pressure, silence allows a person to reconnect with their core values and long-term aspirations. The clarity of the eureka moment. Neuropsychology suggests that during periods of quiet, the brain's default mode network, DMN, becomes active. This is where the mind connects disparate ideas, leading to creative breakthroughs and profound aha moments. Emotional regulation and resilient silence provides the gap between a stimulus and a response. The power of the pause in moments of stress. Choosing silence for a few minutes prevents the amygdala hijack, where the brain reacts out of fear or frustration. This pause allows the prefrontal cortex to regain control, fostering emotional intelligence. cultivating mindfulness. Systematic silence, like meditation, trains the mind to observe thoughts without being consumed by them. This builds a psychological buffer that helps individuals navigate life's challenges with a grounded perspective. Part 4. The Unspoken. Bond silence in interpersonal relationships. We often fear silence in the company of others, labeling it awkward. However, in the highest forms of human connection, silence is a sign of profound trust and sophisticated communication. 1. The sound of presence. Active listening, true listening, requires a disciplined silence. It is about more than just not talking. It is about creating a holding space for the other person. Empathetic silence. When someone we care about is going through a difficult time, words often fall short. Being present in silence communicates, I am here, I am witnessing your experience, and I don't need to fix you to value you. Validation beyond words. A shared silence can often be more validating than 1,000 platitudes. It signals that the relationship is secure enough that it doesn't need to be filled with constant chatter. 2. The comfortable silence, a metric of intimacy. The transition from awkward silence to comfortable silence is a major milestone. In any relationship, psychological safety. To be silent with another person without feeling the need to perform or entertain is a peak indicator of psychological safety. It shows that the bond is based on being together rather than doing together. A shared rhythms, just as music needs rests between notes to create a melody. Relationships need quiet intervals to allow the shared experiences to settle and be integrated into the history of the couple or friends. 3. De-escalation through strategic silencing moments of conflict. Silence can be a constructive tool rather than a weapon of the cold shoulder. The cooling off period. Choosing to be silent during a heated argument isn't about avoidance. It's about preventing words that cannot be taken back. It's a mutual agreement that the relationship is more important than winning. The moment. Space for reflection. Providing a partner or friend with a gift of silence allows them the space to process their own feelings, leading to more honest and less defensive resolutions. The synthesis of growth and connection. When we master silence within ourselves, we become better companions for others. Self-growth provides the content of our character, while the silence in our relationships provides the context where that character can be truly seen and appreciated. Silence is a source of great strength. Lao Tzu continuing our exploration, we move into the realms of professional brilliance and modern survival. Silence is not just a psychological state. It is a strategic asset in the attention economy. Part 5. The silent pulse of innovation. Silence in creative flowing the arts and sciences. Silence is often the secret ingredient of genius. Id is the canvas upon which the most intricate ideas are painted. 1. The incubation period. Creativity is rarely a linear process. It involves a critical stage known as incubation, subconscious heavy lifting, when we step away from a problem and enter a period of quiet. Our conscious mind rests, but our subconscious continues to work. This is why sleeping on it or taking a quiet walk often leads to a sudden breakthrough. The flow state. In the zone of flow, external distractions disappear. This internal silence allows for a Heibenwith connection between thought and action, where the creator and the creation become 1.2. Silence as a medium in music. The most powerful moments are often the rests between notes. In architecture, it is the negative space. The power of contrast. Silence provides the necessary contrast that makes sound, color, or words meaningful. Without the pause, the message becomes a chaotic blur. Respecting the audience by incorporating silence into Part 6. The modern anchor integrating strategic silence into daily life in an era of always-on connectivity. Silence has become a luxury. However, it is a luxury we must reclaim to maintain our cognitive health and emotional balance. 1. Digital. Minimalism and input control. Strategic silence today isn't just about sound. It's about reducing the data noise, scheduled disconnection, setting boundaries with technology, for example. Phone-free mornings or no-screen Sundays creates a vacuum that the mind fills with its own original thoughts, filtering the signal from the noise by intentionally choosing what we consume. We protect our internal quiet from being hijacked by the constant stream of notifications and algorithms. 2. The ritual of the golden hour. Many high performers utilize a golden hour, a period of silence at the start or end of the day. Morning stillness, deducing the first hour of the day for quiet reflection or planning. Before the world's demands start pouring in, sets a proactive rather than reactive tone for the day. Evening wind down. Using silence to decompress at night allows the nervous system to shift from the fight or flight mode into a state of rest and recovery. Conclusion. Mastering the art of quiet as we have explored. Silence is far from a passive absence. It is a multidimensional tool for human existence. Psychologically, it is a sanctuary for processing and protection. Personally, it is the laboratory where the self is refined and creative sparks are ignited. Socially, it is the bridge that fosters deep, authentic connection to live a full, vibrant life. We do not need to escape silence, nor should we let it become a wall. Instead, we should treat it like a master musician treats a res in a scoras, a vital, intentional pause that gives life, rhythm, and meaning to the music that follows. When we are no longer afraid of the quiet, we find that the world has much more to say to us, and we, in turn, have much more meaningful things to say to the world. The quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. Ram Dass.
Hashtag the world that never stops talking, reclaiming the power of silence. Introduction: The Great Wall of Noise. We live in the loudest era in human history, but I'm not just talking about the decibels of a jet engine or the roar of a construction site. I'm talking about the cognitive noise. From the nanosecond your eyes open, a tidal wave of data rushes toward you. The piercing digital chirps of an alarm, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of traffic, and then, the most invasive sound of all, the ping of a notification. Even when the room is physically quiet, our minds are bombarded by the flickering light of screens and the internal chatter of an endless to-do list. For 99% of human history, silence was not a luxury. It was the default setting of existence. It was the rhythm of the seasons, the stillness of the desert, and the long, dark nights of our ancestors. Today, silence has become so rare that it feels alien. It feels uncomfortable. When the music stops or the Wi-Fi goes down, we feel a twitch of anxiety. But what are we losing in this cacophony? And what happens to a species that forgets how to be still? The neuroscience of stillness. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a biological state that triggers a profound shift in how our hardware, the brain, operates. The 2-minute miracle. In 2006, physician Luciano Bernardi studied the physiological effects of music. He discovered something accidental but revolutionary. He played various tracks to subjects, but the most significant drop in blood pressure and heart rate didn't happen during the relaxing music. It happened during the 2-minute silent pauses between the tracks. The brain and heart reacted more positively to the silence than to the calming sounds. The default mode network. When you are focused on a task, sending an email or driving, your brain uses specific task-positive networks. But when you enter a silent, unstimulated environment, your brain flips a switch to the default mode network, DMN. This is where the magic happens. The DMN is responsible for self-reflection, integrating who you are with what you've experienced, moral reasoning, processing complex social and ethical situations, creativity, connecting two unrelated ideas to create something new. Without silence, the DMN never gets its turn. We become reactive animals, responding to pings and prompts, but never reflective humans. Brain cell regeneration. In 2013, a landmark study published in the journal Brain Structure and Function looked at how different types of noise affected the brains of mice. The researchers intended silence to be the control group. However, they found that 2 hours of silence per day led to the development of new cells in the hippocampus, the region of the brain vital for memory and learning. Silence literally builds your brain. It is the soil in which new neurons grow. The modern fear, why we flee from quiet. If silence is a biological superfood, why do we treat it like a poison? The electric shock study. A famous study at the University of Virginia asked participants to sit in a room alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. No phones, no books, no distractions. The only thing in the room was a button that, if pressed, would deliver a painful electric shock. The results were staggering. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to shock themselves rather than just sit in silence. One man shocked himself 190 times. This reveals a profound truth. For many of us, physical pain is preferable to the pain of being alone with our own minds. In silence, there is no noise to drown out our regrets, our anxieties about the future, or the deep questions we are too busy to answer. We use noise as a form of self-medication, an anesthetic for the soul. The productivity trap. Our culture equates busy with important. We are told that every second must be optimized. If you are sitting quietly on a bench, you look unproductive. If you are scrolling through a feed, you look engaged. This social pressure has turned silence into a source of guilt. We feel that if we aren't consuming information, we are falling behind. But the truth is the opposite. Constant consumption leads to cognitive fatigue, silence, and the ego. To understand why we fear silence, we must understand the ego. The ego is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. It thrives on feedback. It wants likes, comments, arguments, and validation. Hashtag the world that never stops talking, reclaiming the power of silence. Introduction, the Great Wall of Noise. We live in the loudest era in human history, but I'm not just talking about the decibels of a jet engine or the roar of a construction site. I'm talking about the cognitive noise. From the nanosecond your eyes open, a tidal wave of data rushes toward you. The piercing digital chirps of an alarm, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of traffic, and then, the most invasive sound of all, the ping of a notification. Even when the room is physically quiet, our minds are bombarded by the flickering light of screens and the internal chatter of an endless to-do list. For 99% of human history, silence was not a luxury. It was the default setting of existence. It was the rhythm of the seasons, the stillness of the desert, and the long, dark nights of our ancestors. Today, silence has become so rare that it feels alien. It feels uncomfortable. When the music stops or the Wi-Fi goes down, we feel a twitch of anxiety. But what are we losing in this cacophony? And what happens to a species that forgets how to be still? The neuroscience of stillness. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a biological state that triggers a profound shift in how our hardware, the brain, operates. The 2-minute miracle. In 2006, physician Luciano Bernardi studied the physiological effects of music. He discovered something accidental but revolutionary. He played various tracks to subjects, but the most significant drop in blood pressure and heart rate didn't happen during the relaxing music. It happened during the 2-minute silent pauses between the tracks. The brain and heart reacted more positively to the silence than to the calming sounds. The default mode network. When you are focused on a task, sending an email or driving, your brain uses specific task-positive networks. But when you enter a silent, unstimulated environment, your brain flips a switch to the default mode network, DMN. This is where the magic happens. The DMN is responsible for self-reflection, integrating who you are with what you've experienced, moral reasoning, processing complex social and ethical situations, creativity, connecting two unrelated ideas to create something new. Without silence, the DMN never gets its turn. We become reactive animals, responding to pings and prompts, but never reflective humans. Brain cell regeneration. In 2013, a landmark study published in the journal Brain Structure and Function looked at how different types of noise affected the brains of mice. The researchers intended silence to be the control group. However, they found that 2 hours of silence per day led to the development of new cells in the hippocampus, the region of the brain vital for memory and learning. Silence literally builds your brain. It is the soil in which new neurons grow. The modern fear, why we flee from quiet. If silence is a biological superfood, why do we treat it like a poison? The electric shock study. A famous study at the University of Virginia asked participants to sit in a room alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. No phones, no books, no distractions. The only thing in the room was a button that, if pressed, would deliver a painful electric shock. The results were staggering. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to shock themselves rather than just sit in silence. One man shocked himself 190 times. This reveals a profound truth. For many of us, physical pain is preferable to the pain of being alone with our own minds. In silence, there is no noise to drown out our regrets, our anxieties about the future, or the deep questions we are too busy to answer. We use noise as a form of self-medication, an anesthetic for the soul. The productivity trap. Our culture equates busy with important. We are told that every second must be optimized. If you are sitting quietly on a bench, you look unproductive. If you are scrolling through a feed, you look engaged. This social pressure has turned silence into a source of guilt. We feel that if we aren't consuming information, we are falling behind. But the truth is the opposite. Constant consumption leads to cognitive fatigue, silence, and the ego. To understand why we fear silence, we must understand the ego. The ego is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. It thrives on feedback. It wants likes, comments. Hashtag the world that never stops talking, reclaiming the power of silence. Introduction: The Great Wall of Noise. We live in the loudest era in human history. But I'm not just talking about the decibels of a jet engine or the roar of a construction site. I'm talking about the cognitive noise. From the nanosecond your eyes open, a tidal wave of data rushes toward you. The piercing digital chirps of an alarm, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of traffic, and then, the most invasive sound of all, the ping of a notification. Even when the room is physically quiet, our minds are bombarded by the flickering light of screens and the internal chatter of an endless to-do list. For 99% of human history, silence was not a luxury. It was the default setting of existence. It was the rhythm of the seasons, the stillness of the desert, and the long, dark nights of our ancestors. Today, silence has become so rare that it feels alien. It feels uncomfortable. When the music stops or the Wi-Fi goes down, we feel a twitch of anxiety. But what are we losing in this cacophony? And what happens to a species that forgets how to be still? The neuroscience of stillness. Silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a biological state that triggers a profound shift in how our hardware, the brain, operates. The 2-minute miracle. In 2006, physician Luciano Bernardi studied the physiological effects of music. He discovered something accidental but revolutionary. He played various tracks to subjects, but the most significant drop in blood pressure and heart rate didn't happen during the relaxing music. It happened during the 2-minute silent pauses between the tracks. The brain and heart reacted more positively to the silence than to the calming sounds. The default mode network. When you are focused on a task, sending an email or driving, your brain uses specific task-positive networks. But when you enter a silent, unstimulated environment, your brain flips a switch to the default mode network, DMN. This is where the magic happens. The DMN is responsible for self-reflection, integrating who you are with what you've experienced. Moral reasoning, processing complex social and ethical situations. Creativity, connecting two unrelated ideas to create something new. Without silence, the DMN never gets its turn. We become reactive animals, responding to pings and prompts, but never reflective humans. Brain cell regeneration. In 2013, a landmark study published in the journal Brain Structure and Function looked at how different types of noise affected the brains of mice. The researchers intended silence to be the control group. However, they found that 2 hours of silence per day led to the development of new cells in the hippocampus, the region of the brain vital for memory and learning. Silence literally builds your brain. It is the soil in which new neurons grow. The modern fear, why we flee from quiet. If silence is a biological superfood, why do we treat it like a poison? The electric shock study. A famous study at the University of Virginia asked participants to sit in a room alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. No phones, no books, no distractions. The only thing in the room was a button that, if pressed, would deliver a painful electric shock. The results were staggering. 67% of men and 25% of women chose to shock themselves rather than just sit in silence. One man shocked himself 190 times. This reveals a profound truth. For many of us, physical pain is preferable to the pain of being alone with our own minds. In silence, there is no noise to drown out our regrets, our anxieties about the future, or the deep questions we are too busy to answer. We use noise as a form of self-medication, an anesthetic for the soul. The productivity trap. Our culture equates busy with important. We are told that every second must be optimized. If you are sitting quietly on a bench, you look unproductive. If you are scrolling through a feed, you look engaged. This social pressure has turned silence into a source of guilt. We feel that if we aren't consuming information, we are falling behind. But the truth is the opposite. Constant consumption leads to cognitive fatigue, silence, and the ego. To understand why we fear silence, we must understand the ego. The ego is the story we tell ourselves about who we are. It thrives on feedback. It wants likes, comments, arguments, and validation.